All right. So offer to pay buyers or sellers closing costs. This sounds crazy, right? Because normally in the old days, we used to ask for the seller to pay part of the closing costs to the buyer. Here we're saying we're going to cover our own closing costs and we'll pay yours too. Like, so the big thing in today's crazy market, these are the top 10 tips, is that I have found over the years is that you need to connect with the listing agent. You know, if you think about it, they're going to either be your adversary if you're competing against them to negotiate. Now, look, if this was a buyer's market, you know, it's a whole different switch of the, you know, who does what. And, you know, but here, I hate to say it, but you got to kind of do it their way. You got to kind of play by their rules. I don't want to use any other little terms here, but you got, but you got to, all right, well, you know, you got to kiss their, you know what, it literally, I mean, because whatever it's going to take, remember, your fiduciary is to work for and with your client to get their property. And if you get it under contract, they're going to get a great, you know, property and you're going to get paid. So let's be honest here. We're trying to do what we can to help our clients. And in the meantime, trying to help make sure you get, you know, a commission check. So here's the thing. The number one thing that people always mess up, and look, I get a ton of calls, just like, well, we've been starting this call. I've gotten 3 texts and 6 more people have booked showings for my new listing. Okay. So the thing that really stands out to me is the people who are professional and organized, the people who follow instructions. When I put all the agent notes together, so if they're asking me a bunch of stuff that they haven't seen in the agent notes, I'm going to politely text them back or call them and say, hey, have you looked at all the supplements and have you read all of your agent notes? And if the answer is, oh, no, I wasn't, I just want to call you real quick. Yeah, no, I'm too busy. All right. So when I say doing it their way, it's because I have a way to do it. It's an efficient way to do it. And of course, I do it a little different than most because I do an open bid and we share all pricing and terms with all interested parties, which makes it a really great use of time. But nonetheless, when you do call your agent, the first thing you should do is make sure you've got all the information, right? So when you call them or text them and say, hey, I'd like to just talk to you real quick before I write an offer, or I have some questions. Do not call and inundate listing people before you've seen the property. So let me just start with that too. It is the most annoying thing when they start asking all these things and they haven't even seen the property yet. Now, some things they can do as a preemptive thing. I get it, but you know, you should probably go see the property first, which is number 2. We'll talk about that in a second. We also, when we do get a hold of them, we want to find out what would the seller like to see. Would the seller like to see a buyer's letter? Now, a long time ago, they were very popular, and today they're not used quite as much. There's some controversy around that, but I got to tell you, let me just give you an example. And again, we can't, we have a lot of things we have to follow in the real estate world, but let's be honest. If they're, I'll give you a couple examples. A woman whose husband passed away a few years ago and the kids are grown and gone and all the kids were grown up in that particular home. And well, I'll just give you the exact example of what happened with my daughter when we got her an opportunity to buy in multiple offers. Now, it wasn't the crazy market of today where there's like 11 offers, but there was definitely 2 other offers. We were 30,000 lower and we got the deal. Why? Because of the buyer's letter. Because this woman whose husband passed away and the kids were all grown and gone and they all raised them on this wonderful 10-acre piece of property across from the lake. Loved the idea that my daughter and her husband, or soon to be husband, they weren't married quite yet, all grew up with a listing agent. They all grew up in the area. They have kids that they're raising that can enjoy the yards and the gardens because she loved her gardens. And all these things that we found out about her through talking to the listing agent, we were able to craft the perfect buyer's letter that she just went, oh my God, I want them to have my house and raise their kids and enjoy all the things I did with my kids. Oh, and when they found out that the dad, quote unquote stepdad, was the buyer's agent, and I was giving all of my commissions to help with their closing costs and their down payment, she's like, "Oh my God, that is so wonderful." Okay, now I know that's a pretty, like, yeah, I don't know if you can recreate that kind of an opportunity in your letter, but do whatever you can, because it does make a difference sometimes. Sometimes the listing agents will say, "We will not read or consider buyers' letters." And so then what do? Don't go sending one anyways. Like, well, I don't care. I'm going to send it because mine's so great. And this couple is so wonderful with their dog and their kids, and they're going to love this house. And again, do it their way. All right, enough said on that. Next, are you accepting escalation clauses? What is that? Well, it's an opportunity, typically as you write it as an addendum or in the other section of the PA, that you will go $1,000 higher than the next highest offer. Usually there's going to be some proof that it's actually that number. That can be done verbally by believing them, or it could be by them, redacting some of the information about the name of the person and who the agent is, because that's privacy information. We've talked about that. But if you can kind of take a copy and kind of white out that and show them that this is a real legitimate offer and here's where you need to be. Escalation clause can also say not only $1,000 over the next highest offer, but up to a certain number. Well, to me, they're kind of ridiculous, because if you say up to a certain number, then you know what that person's willing to go to. So you may as well just like go to that number. And how do we know? And most people don't want to spend that money if they don't have to. Well, if you sent that to me and I'm the listing agent, I'm going to exploit the heck out of that. All right. So be careful, because remember, knowledge is power. And actually, knowledge is power, but it's more applied knowledge is power. And that is that if you apply this correctly in the way that you work multiple offers, and I'm going to my listing agent training again, be careful with that, because that can work for you and you can also get them to pay more. Now, if they're willing to pay whatever it takes to get it, then I guess it didn't really matter. So on my last one, I think I had 2 escalation clauses and we all blew by their highest number anyways. And then in the open bid situation, then it ended up going even higher because they wanted it. And the one person who didn't do an escalation clause actually got it. So, it is what it is. It is something that is used more and more now. And another thing that is also very important is asking them this simple, flat out question. I did a thing with a mastermind with some other top leaders, and they've said that the number one thing, people never ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. You've heard that, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. So if you don't ask them what it's going to take to get your offer accepted, then how will you ever know? I love these rookie agents who write offers, thinking that we're going to then negotiate. I'll just write a low offer and then we'll kind of negotiate whatever. Well, you might not have time to do that in this market, but they don't even call, they don't even ask, they don't figure out how to craft the right offer, and they don't even find out what it will take. So when I have my listings and I have my agent remarks, I tell people basically in a really flat out way, do not write an offer. I don't say it this way, but I'm like, before you write an offer, please call me so we can discuss to help you. I don't know exactly what I said. I'll have to go look it up. Anyways, so people need to call me, because if they're going to be super low and they're going to have an inspection contingency and blah, 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 it's not even going to get accepted. Therefore, don't even write it. You know what I mean? So if you can find out some of this, you might be able to go back to your buyer and say, they're not going to take, inspection contingency. They need to close on this day and they have to have whatever, whatever. And if that doesn't work with your buyer, it's time then to go on to that next property. All right. So what we're trying to do is manage expectations. We're trying to do this efficiently. We're trying to avoid heartache and headaches. And we sure don't want you to be blamed by why you didn't get this offer accepted, because there's a lot of agents who are like, then they cry with me. They're like they're not crying, but they're like kind of whining. And they're like, oh, we've had like 5, we've been 5, none of them gotten accepted. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, maybe it's your approach. because you're already doing it to me. It's like you're like all whiny, and your people don't want to spend the money that it's going to take. So in that case, just quick note to them, it's like you might want to start lower. Like if their budget top is 350 and then it's going to go another 20,000 or 30,000 over that, maybe only have your buyers looking at stuff that's 300. so that by the time you go up to a number that's crazy, it's still within their budget, right? Anyways, little side note. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is be first to view and first to submit an offer. Why? Because if you are stalking a coming soon listing, which by the way, I have a lot of people doing right now. In fact, I could maybe even bring it up. Remind me, Chris or Colleen or someone. I'll show you that and how this coming soon will just blow things up. Because there's no reason, in my opinion, if you properly market, you properly price it, you start low to get high, that you are going to sell that property within 3 to 5 days max. Okay. You want enough eyeballs on it. And there I go back into my listing training. Okay. So why do you want to be first? Because there might be a ton of offers in those first 24 to 36, 48 hours. And you want to be the first to at least get looked at and at least know that you're in the open bid or the highest and best opportunity. And what I found is that typically the first person who submits an offer isn't necessarily the highest offer, but they're the most committed, because I can see and track that they were the first to see it in the first few hours that it went live. They were the first to write an offer. That tells me a lot about their motivation, right? So I want to exploit that. And I don't want to say that in a negative way. It's when I say exploit it, I want to take advantage and have that as a way to get my seller more money. So when you do that, it's showing that you're interested, and you should, because if you rise to the top and you have that good communications with the listing agent, you're going to have a whole lot better chance that yours will get not only accepted possibly, because I've had people who say, look, if the first one comes in and it's this number, I'll just take it. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, I don't want to mess around. If it's this and this and this and this, we have some criteria, right? So first, submit an offer is not a bad thing, and definitely the first to view it is very important. All right, let's go on to the next one. Number 3, close on the seller's terms. What does that mean? Well, it goes back to, what do they want? Like, what is it going to take to get this offer accepted? In some cases, it's more earnest money, where you're going to simply, and I hate to say this, and the buyers are scared of this too, especially if their finance is a little bit shaky, but they may be not willing. But if you ask for them to forfeit their earnest money if it doesn't close, that shows that you're committed, right? If you're going to be putting in like $5,000 rather than just the typical 1% down, that's going to show you're committed. You might want to do appraisal gap coverage. What does that mean? It means that you know that there's a good chance, because it's such a crazy market, that this home's only worth $300,000, but you're going to go to $350,000. And if the appraisal only comes in at $320,000, who's going to cover that extra $30,000 gap? Well, in the traditional world, the seller would just have to reduce the price in an FHA deal. In a conventional deal, the buyer could just put less down and use more of their cash. Instead of putting it down, they could use it to cover the gap. But in a lot of cases, it's kind of negotiated where the seller will come down a little bit and then the buyer will come up with more money to make everything work. In today's world, as highly competitive as it is, it's all on the buyer. If you want to play ball and be a contender at the final countdown, I call it the final 4, you're probably going to have to cover all that appraisal gap coverage on your own. And then another creative thing that we've done and seen is what's called a lease back. In fact, my current property, that's someone is asking me, will they consider it? And the answer is yes. Why? Because they close earlier and then they take occupancy later. And so even though we say lease back, that doesn't mean they're actually going to pay them $1,500 a month for a lease. It just means that you now are under the obligation where they become the landlord on a free month's lease, or 30 days or 60 days or whatever it happens to be, so that they know they can tie it up. And then that way the seller can use those funds and actually has that money to pay cash for the next property or more money down, or they just know that it's a done deal. But the other reason that people do it, like this particular one I'm working on, is because they want to be able to use the garage exclusively for storage. So the daughter is going to a university near where the property is. It happens to be right by Hamline University, a well-known university here in Minnesota. And they want to be able to close earlier so that when her semester's over, instead of moving it to storage temporarily out of the dorm, they want to be able to put it in the garage. Well, what they don't realize is we could do that without a lease back. We could just close early and just make whatever. But nonetheless, it's just other ways that you can kind of structure it. so that people have flexibility. So this is all about what's good for the seller and what will the buyers be willing to do to make it good for the seller. All right, let's stop there and open up the lines. We got anything in the text chat? No. Questions on that so far? Because that's a lot. I found out last time when we did this. I love it when Terry went, whoa, that was a lot. We got to stop here. That got to unpack a few things. So let's go for it. Questions so far before we continue?
I have more of a statement. I was thinking about this when the sellers have a stop clause.
Okay.
You know, then the lease back helps them buy their next house too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, again, it's whatever works best for the seller, because the seller's in the driver's seat. The seller's going to pick. Now, if it was a buyer's market, it'd be like, hey, I'll give you less money. I was going to show that video. Gosh darn it. Someone remind me in the text chat or something about that funny video about what used to happen in a buyer's market and what it's like now in a seller's market. It's like a 3-minute video and it's hysterical. And, you know, every good agent who's going through this needs a good laugh when they're pulling their hair out and going crazy trying to get their offer accepted. Thank you, Christy. Good stuff. All right, others, go for it. Any other questions or comments? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yes, Kathia. I don't know. I saw ladies first. Chris, come on.
When I read that you were talking about offers, I said, well, I better be there because I never write an offer. Never. We in Panama don't write offers, but I think it's because of that you're explaining right now. We are most of the time in the buyer's market. So we got different offers for different properties, but it's not like something we write. I don't know if I'm getting it wrong, but it's like a form that you write with the conditions your buyer will offer.
Yeah.
And then, or are all the offers are the same, or this is something that you draft on your own? How it works? I'm sorry if it's a silly question, but it's.
Oh, that's okay. So in some countries, what a lot of times you do is and I do it too if I can, it's what we call old school, where we just talk about the terms and conditions, we talk about price, and we kind of put everything, it's kind of a meeting of the mind. And then once we're like, yeah, that sounds great, then we write it up, done. Now that is when it's a buyer's market, because you have a seller who's willing to sell and you have more properties to pick from. Like you have 7 properties you can buy, but the seller doesn't have that many offers and people that are interested in their property. So in that kind of a market, it's very different. Now we can just talk about it, negotiate it, and then, yep, sounds good. All right, put it in writing, done. But that's not the market we're in. We're in a seller's market here in most of the areas of different countries. I know the UK, I know in Canada, everything is a seller's market right now. So what that means is that we're highly competitive and we have to figure out, you know, how to get ours accepted, because you can just talk about it. Like I've had people call me and say, hey, if we offer this, will you just shut everything down? You won't do an open house. You won't consider other offers. You'll just take ours today. And I'm like, yeah, let me talk with my seller. Here's your number. Oh, wow, we're not going that high. Well, then guess what? You're not that serious. And that was like literally 50,000 over asking. And anyways, so does that help, Kathia?
Yes.
Okay, good. Chris, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry, Chris. Yeah, and it is a form, or you write like a offer letter for the seller?
We have forms that we fill in that are very extensive here in the States. An offer and all things considered, everything that has to be disclosed and signed, and it could be 34 pages here in the States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Understood. Thank you.
I'll send you one, Kathia, if you'd like. Send me a reminder and I'll show you one that you can see how involved and kind of complicated it is here in the States to do a deal.
Okay, perfect.
Chris, go ahead. Question.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to under number 1D. So as a buyer's agent and you're calling the listing agent saying, hey, what'll it take to get our offer accepted?
Yes.
I know a lot of people around this market don't use the, hey, seller, give me written permission to discuss the terms
Right.
with all the offers.
Yep.
So as a buyer agent, when you contact a listing agent and they just say, hey, and you say, what'll it take to get our offer accepted? Do you ask them if they have that permission from the sellers, or are they just
No,
like, what kind
I
of
don't.
feedback do you get? Because
Well, so let's
on
role
a-
play it.
well, I want to use an example, because when
Go ahead.
you taught me this a long time ago to get permission, from your sellers, I used it when I was working with a buyer agent, and I told the agent, and I said, hey, just get permission from your seller so we can talk, because my
that's
buyer really wants this house and we want to make it work. And we ended up winning
good.
and getting it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see how you approach it as a buyer agent if the listing agent doesn't have that permission.
Great. All right. Well, then I'm going to kind of role play it with or without you. So you're going to be involved, Chris. So just watch.
Yeah.
So I call up ring. Hey, Chris, how are you? Hey, it's Marty. I'm so excited to be able to reach you. I know you're super busy. Listen, I just wanted to find out, first of all, I'm sure you've probably got some offers already, and then you might say, no, actually, I don't. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure you got a lot of showings, though. I see that. Yeah, we got a lot of people that are interested. So here's what I'm calling for. I really want to be able to craft an offer that's going to be great for your seller. And I'm wondering if you can kind of help me through that a little bit. Like, what are some of the basic things that they're looking for? Like maybe closing date, do they need to close quickly, or do they need some flexibility because they're still trying to look for their house? And then Chris, I'm going to have you involve yourself now. Go for it.
No, they've already found a place, that they're downsizing to. So they're, and we're already good on that one. So the flexibility is there for a closing date.
Okay, good. So would sooner then be better than later? Like if we can close in 30 days, that would be a good date, kind of put an honor before, May 20th, for instance.
Yeah, because they can move out anytime. Okay,
great. And then is there any other things that, like inspection contingency? The house looks super clean. Do you think they would consider an inspection contingency in this market?
They probably wouldn't oppose it if we get other offers and there's not an inspection, it would come down to those details, but they're not opposed to it.
Great. All right. Well, my buyer really likes it. Look, and if there's any way we could, write an offer that would get accepted, they're ready to go. They're highly qualified. They're doing 20% down. We may consider waiving the inspection. We can do a fair amount of earnest money. What other things do you think you would be looking for, or what your seller would be looking for to get an offer accepted? Can you give me any other further details? Do you have authorization to kind of share that? Because oftentimes when I do my listings, I get authorization so that I can kind of just get right to it and come up with a great offer and get it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't officially have the authorization, but I will certainly call them and talk to them about it. And then, I can call you back and we can talk more.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because if you just get it in writing, even a simple email will be enough to be able to share kind of all terms and pricing of what they're looking for. Then, you and I can just kind of work it out, craft an offer, write it. That way we're not having to counter, just write an offer that's a strong offer that they're excited about, and done. If that works for you, it'd be great. I really would appreciate it if you can get back to me and kind of let me know where we're at with that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So that's kind of all I would do. I don't just jump right in there like, hey, blah, blah, blah. If you got an authorization, blah, blah, blah. No, I just start, just asking them some questions, finding out what they're going to do. Some people ask, are you going to be calling for highest and best? And there's a lot of things you can do to uncover that. But what's most important is the fact that you want to, get all that information without feel like you're just, like bam, bam, bam. Like sometimes I found that kind of weaker agents, when I'm suggesting things and doing, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're trying to control me or whatever. It's just like, oh my God, really? They're like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird deal. I've run into some really newbie agents who are just not feeling any kind of coaching or, hey, how can we make this better for everyone? Because I'm trying to get them more money, which honestly, think about it. Incrementally, we're all going to make more as the number goes up as agents on both sides. But they're just not getting it. So anyways,
I think a lot of agents are or I think maybe not a lot, but a lot I've run into are just stuck in the old school mindset of, oh,
Right.
well, yeah, you just put it in writing and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And then that goes back to where you say, you know, I don't need practice writing offers. So
Absolutely.
that's why we're talking about it, so we can put together the best offer.
You are an incredible student, Chris. I love all the things that I'm like, hey, I think I've heard that from someone. I love it. Those are great. Yeah, keep going. Keep doing it, Chris. That's awesome. All right, anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to go on. Number 4, ready? Consider no inspection contingency. Now, this is tough for new buyers. First-time home buyers are like all freaked out if they're not real handy, you know, like the younger people I found, and I don't want to give too much of I'm going to jokingly say this, but the younger the people are, the less they know about how to work on stuff. You know, like, well, isn't there an app for that? Because they don't like know how to like hammer a nail. They don't know how to like fix a squeaky door or, you know, window that won't stay up. So I get it that they're going to be a little bit more freaked out. So what we've done is, here's the workaround, is if you know they're not going to consider, if they're not going to consider inspection contingency because it's just that crazy, then on the second showing, if there's time, I have inspectors already lined up with my team who will go out on the second showing. And even though they're not going to have 3 hours to take the whole thing apart, if you will, but they're going to do an hour where they're out looking around, and the inspector is going to be just in there for an hour trying to figure out as much stuff as he can and try and put together some numbers on what this is going to cost. Because obviously there's things that every house has probably wrong. It's just a matter of, is it going to cost you $1,000 over time or $10,000 over time? If it's the furnace versus a window, is it, you know, the oven that, you know, is kind of weird, or the refrigerator that you're going to probably want to replace? Well, those things are obvious. You can't, those aren't inspection things. You know, like if the garbage disposal doesn't work. Okay, yeah, that'll come up on an inspection report, but really you're going to let that stop you, you know, $180, and then another $100 to install it if you have a plumber do it or whatever, to stop you from buying a $400,000 home? Probably not, right? So you want to kind of know if these are big deals or not. So that's just one way people are doing it. I think it's very creative. They go, hey, if I do a second showing, you know, will you make sure that we can see it before you're going to accept offers? And I always give them the assurance, yes, you'll have time, go for it. Again, just working with me as a listing agent is a whole lot different experience, which is why I want everyone to learn this method, because it just makes it easier for everyone, so that the expectations are out there. You're managing those expectations, and everyone knows through transparency and full disclosure what's going on. Another big thing, by the way, in your partnership with trying to get an offer accepted, is the lender you work with. So if you're going to use, like, and again, I don't want to say anything bad about like Rocket Mortgage or some of these other national ones that are out there that typically are not going to be available on the weekends. Everything's done by email. Yes, they gave you a pre-approval or pre-qualification, but at the end of the day, if you're a solid lender locally, you know the market, you know what the appraisal issues might be, and you've vetted that buyer where you've looked at, you know, 1099s and tax returns, you've seen W-2s, you've got asset verification, et cetera, then you're going to know that you can kind of sell that listing agent on how great your buyer is. Think about it. You're the one who's like, hey, I want to get this offer accepted, but the lender is going to come alongside you and partner up on that and share as much as they can legally about this. This is a great buyer. Yes, we've looked at, you know, whatever. And they got to be able to be around to take those calls. They got to be able to work at nights. They got to be able to work weekends. They got to answer their phone. They got to text if they can't answer their phone. Because if that person is ready to make a decision and it's now down to the top 2 or 3, which is typically where I am, on these deals, I'm calling those lenders and vetting those buyers, because I want to feed that back to my seller to know, here's what I found. Here's the feeling I got from that lender. And here's now the top 2. What do you want to do? And a lot of times you're like, well, what do you think? And of course, obviously I have the experience. So I give them my thoughts and they go, sounds good to me. And it all works out fine. But if you blindly just think that your lender is going to take care of business, you'd be amazed at how big a deal to a listing agent that lender being cooperative and communicative and being available is a big deal in getting your offer accepted over others. All right, number 6, be a proactive and persistent, not a pest. So what does that mean? It means that you want to follow up. Hey, how's it going? I know you probably are up to what, 5 offers now? Well, no, we're only up to 3. Are you going to be calling for highest and best? And if you are, how can I, help kind of give my buyer some feedback on how we can get this offer accepted? Is there any way if we came up a little bit more before we like counter ourselves? Is there a number now that you've kind of seen these other offers where we need to be so we can kind of maybe get this thing done like today? Like I know you're going to be doing an open house on Saturday, but if we were able to come up high enough, would you be able to discuss that with me so we could maybe just shut this thing down today? What do you think? Oh yeah, that'd be great. What kind of number are you thinking of? And again, you got to have authorization from your buyer to be able to share this, right? People say, well, I'm authorized to go up to X amount, whatever. And then they can go back and get further authorization to go to a written counter offer. And so in that case, it might be like some crazy number, like, 40,000 over asking. Oh, wow. Well, yeah. And then no inspection. Then you break down all of the terms again. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. If you write that up, we'll take that offer. Or let me talk with my seller. Then they get back to you. Yeah, if you write that up, we'll take that offer. And some of that's done by text as well, and that's fine, or email. But if you're the person, and I just want to say that is calling then every 2 hours and going, so this and that, and then so I haven't heard back from you, and blah, 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 and they're just being like a totally pain in the butt. There's a difference between being proactive and persistent and professional and being just a total pain in the butt and being a pest. So be careful with that. Because I've had agents who don't even know they're doing that. And I go, look, chill. I know where you're at. And I know a lot's on the line here, but you can't call me every hour and expect that I'm going to have an update for you. Okay. So don't be that agent. Next, offer now this is kind of, as we're going here, it's getting a little bit more desperate, right? Like what else can we do? All right. So offer to pay buyers or sellers closing costs. This sounds crazy, right? Because normally in the old days, we used to ask for the seller to pay part of the closing costs to the buyer. Here we're saying we're going to cover our own closing costs and we'll pay yours too. You're like, really? Wow. And by the way, if you're moving, because you got to move, we'll even pay your moving expenses. I mean, this is crazy, but people are doing some really crazy stuff. I remember one person was like, hey, we'll pay your closing costs and we have all these maple trees at our house and we will bring over a half a gallon of our finest maple syrup, and the listing and the buying agent has a stump grinder. So at your new house, if you got trees, they'll help you kind of, remove your trees, or whatever. We'll do all that. I mean, this stuff has actually come up. So I'm like, well, let me talk with my seller. I don't know. Maybe they want some maple syrup. Maybe they don't. I don't know. All right. So next one, number 8. Fine. Now this is where it's like, okay, we're just not getting this done. Well, what else can we do? Well, you want to get offers accepted? Well, maybe go find older listings. And I say older, I'm talking about 10 plus days on the market, because at that point, if it's not sold, it's probably priced too high. And so what a lot of people feel like psychologically is that they can never offer below the list price because it won't get accepted. Well, after it's been around for 10 days, there's a whole different discussion going on now. It just became a little mini market or little mini buyer's market on that one property, because the listing agent more than not probably went and said to the seller, here's what I think it's worth. Here's what I think the comps say. They're like, oh no, I want that number. And it's some crazy high number that is not going to get your house sold. It's a bad way to market the property, because if you don't get enough people and eyeballs on it and going through the property because it looks like a great deal, you're not going to get multiple offer situations. So when you run into rookie agents who take the seller at, like, even though you have to have guidance from your seller that says this is what I want to sell it at, and it's way too high, if it's been on the market for 10 days, trust me, you can go below list price. Okay. So that would be another way where you're not competing with a bunch of people, because it's just you and this listing that's priced too high. And if you go 20,000 below or 10,000 below, they might actually take it, The other thing is expired listings. If you want to really get some deals, look for the ones that have gone all the way through their 90 days or 6 months, typically is a listing time period. And once they go expired, don't call the listing agent, call the seller direct and try and work out a deal that says, hey, I have a buyer. If you'll pay me, whatever, 3%, 2.5, 2.7, whatever you want. We won't have to involve a listing agent. I'll take care of the paperwork and facilitate it. We'll get this done. Here's what your net number will be. Bah, bah, bah. They're like, wow, that sounds great. Why not? Let's do it. And that would be another way to get your buyer's offer accepted, because you don't have any competition at that point. All right, what about I'm running out of money? Like, oh my God, if I have to cover these appraisal gap coverage and I got to put more money down, and you'd be surprised. There's people out there with money. So talk with your relatives about what we call gift funds. Gift funds need to be seasoned. What does that mean? It means that they need to see that that money's been in a bank account for at least 60 days. Longer is better, but typically 60 days is the minimum. That's what we call seasoned funds. And I think the reason they call it that is because 60 days or more becomes another season, like from May. I don't know. I've never really realized. I just figured there's a season, there's a time in a season, and there's, anyways, just time, whatever. So it's got to be in there long enough. It's got to also be a relative. It can't just be some random friend, or a fiance. If you're married and it's their side of the family or your side of the family, no problem. Again, talk with your lender on what's qualified gift funds. And then also, or you can pull out your money out of your 401k, which you will not get a penalty, because most 401ks, you can pull that money out for purchasing real estate without an early any kind of fee to do that. So that might be a way to kind of come up with more money for more down payment, to make it look better, to cover the appraisal gap coverage if that comes up, to come up with more earnest money, to cover your own closing costs since the seller's not. And the last one, buy a new home. Because if you buy and build a new home, then it's just you and the price of building a new home, and there's no one competing. We do it all the time. I got 35 homes in Roseville. Well, actually 35 lots, more than half of which is sold out. But the whole idea is that's a lot of times why people are buying new homes, is they don't want to compete. They want the open concept. They want everything new and nice. And if they're willing to pay the price, hey, groovy, great. Let's build you a new home. Now, some people are not going to be able to do that, but at least it's an opportunity to think about as you're talking to your buyers. Last quick reminder here before we wrap up. Remember to remind your buyers to not buy anything with credit. No furniture, no, cars, no new clothes, or opening up a new Macy's card or some department store card, or getting financing for furniture, or any kind of financing, like to buy a motorcycle, or don't do anything with your credit. Don't, you can use credit cards to buy certain things, but don't like open up new credit accounts, and don't try and finance your car. I love these people who, get pre-approved on their house and they're all excited. And so now they want the new car and the new house. And so just before closing, a week before closing, they come to the final walkthrough in a brand new car. It's like, whoa, what's up with the new car? They go, yeah, I just got this new car for my new house. Well, guess what's going to happen? About 3 days before the closing, they're going to pull credit again and find out debt to income ratio, and find out that that new car is going to kill the deal. So don't let that happen. I know this sounds weird, because it's not about getting your offer accepted. It's about keeping your offer alive at this point. So be careful with that, and make sure that lenders typically counsel them. But you want to, just like the lenders, that they're partnering up with you, you want to partner up with them and remind your buyers not to go crazy. Oh, yeah, my lender mentioned that. Well, if they hear it enough, they'll hopefully then take heed to that advice and not screw up getting their new house. All right. Well, there's more to that story, but there's only so much time. So let me show you now, in closing, a sample offer letter, which, by the way, I will make available again in so there's two ways I'm going to do it. One, you'll have access to, in the WhatsApp group, a Google Drive that I've created for all these documents and PDFs and things. So you can copy and paste this. This would be an example of, and this is another thing you should definitely do. This is kind of your extra added bonus now, is that you should always do an offer recap email with all of your offers, so they don't have to dig through all of your offer and try and extract all this information. Make their job easy. So please see attached, offer attached for blah, blah, blah. my client is highly qualified. This is where you get to talk about your clients. We probably don't need to use this whole COVID thing anymore, but I guess it still exists in some people's minds. Offering X amount of money, so much down. Here's your earnest money. You can see that's over 1%, so that's strong. 10,000 would be better, but 5 is great. No seller concessions, which means that the buyers are paying their own closing costs. And of course, no inspection contingency, and get appraisal gap coverage up to 20K. Remember, we talked about if it goes beyond what the appraised value is, that they'll come up with the money. And then closing on or before a specific date. Now, the buyers are flexible, and you want to let them know that they're going to be able to close earlier, later, whatever works best. They'll be able to close early and then do a lease back. They'll be able to close early and whatever. And then, now you're not going to be able to necessarily do this, but I got to tell you, if you also make sure that you're promoting yourself as a great buyer's agent, I got to tell you, it looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? And not to pat myself on the back, but when I go in there with this statement that says I put solid deals together with great buyers that are well vetted, because I do vet my buyers and I make sure they're all pre-approved and they're seriously not just a pre-qualification from Rocket Mortgage, and that they work with my lenders and everything's cool. But I can tell them, since I've been tracking over the last 4 years, 192 deals later, only 2 deals did not close. That ratio is unbelievable, I got to tell you, because most people, for every 20 deals, 1 of them doesn't close. 1 out of 20 doesn't close because someone didn't do their job to quarterback and make sure the process got done correctly. So thanks again for working with me, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, I got my nice little signature, but I couldn't fit it all on there. So there you go. So there you go. So if you want to use that, and I guarantee you should, please make sure you're doing a follow-up with your offer attached, and all your documents, your pre-approval letters, your buyer's letter, if that's going to be used, all in an email with this type of recap information. It makes everyone's life easier. They're going to love you for it.